The restaurant buzzed with the warm energy of the evening rush. Waiters weaved between tables, balancing trays of food, while laughter and conversation filled the air like background music. At a quiet corner table, far from the chatter of business meetings and celebratory dinners, sat David. His suit wasn't crisp, his shoes were scuffed, and the tired lines under his eyes told a story of long hours and endless responsibility. Yet, when he looked across the table at his daughter, Emily, all of that seemed to melt away. She was the reason he kept going. Emily, only 8, was excited about the simple plate of pasta in front of her. She twirled the noodles clumsily on her fork, giggling when they slipped back into the bowl. David chuckled softly, leaning forward to wipe a smear of sauce from her cheek. In that small moment, there was nothing else in the world, just a father and his little girl sharing dinner after a long, exhausting day. For David, nights like this were rare treats. Between juggling 2 jobs and keeping up with Emily's school, he often felt stretched thin. But he had promised himself that she would never feel the emptiness of the sacrifices he made. His smile, warm and reassuring, was his way of shielding her from the weight he carried on his shoulders. To everyone else in the room, he was just another man at another table. But in Emily's eyes, he was everything, her protector, her safe place, her hero in disguise. The calm of the evening shattered in an instant. The sound of the restaurant doors slamming open cut through the chatter like a clap of thunder. 3 men stormed inside, their heavy footsteps and angry voices pulling every pair of eyes toward them. Conversations hushed, forks froze midair, and a wave of unease spread from table to table. David instinctively reached for Emily's hand, pulling her closer as he turned his head to see what was happening. Just a few tables away, a sharply dressed man, clearly someone important, a CEO by the confident way he carried himself, sat surrounded by associates. The men who had barged in were headed straight for him, their faces twisted with fury. The restaurant, once full of warmth and laughter, grew heavy with tension. One of the intruders shouted accusations, his voice echoing off the walls, while another shoved a chair out of the way, pointing directly at the CEO. Guests gasped, some shrinking back against the walls, others fumbling for their phones, too afraid to act but unable to look away. Emily's eyes widened as she clung to David's arm, her voice trembling, "Daddy, what's happening?" He hushed her gently, his heart pounding, scanning the room. No one moved to help. Fear paralyzed the crowd, the waiters frozen in place, the security nowhere in sight. David could feel the tension rising like a storm ready to break. The CEO was in real danger, and though everyone saw it, not a single person dared to step forward. David's pulse quickened, but in that split second, his instincts as a father, and as a human being, took over. He crouched low and whispered urgently to Emily, "Stay under the table, don't move until I come back." Her little hands clutched his sleeve, fear filling her eyes, but she nodded, trusting him completely. Without hesitation, David rose and stepped into the path of the chaos. The men, now only feet away from the CEO, were shouting louder, one of them reaching as if to grab him. Chairs screeched against the floor as guests stumbled back, desperate to keep distance. But instead of retreating, David moved forward. "Enough," he shouted, his voice firm and commanding in a way that surprised even himself. The men turned, startled to see an ordinary man standing between them and their target. David squared his shoulders, his body tense, ready to shield the CEO with nothing but his own strength. For a brief moment, time seemed to freeze. The CEO's eyes widened in disbelief. Why would a stranger, with no stake in the matter, put himself in harm's way? The attackers hesitated too, thrown off by David's unexpected bravery. He wasn't a security guard or a police officer. He was just a single dad in worn clothes, but his stance radiated a courage that demanded attention. Emily peeked out from under the table, her heart racing, watching her father transform before her eyes. In that moment, David wasn't just her dad, He was a shield, a protector, a hero no one had seen coming. The tension broke as the men lunged forward, but before they could reach the CEO, restaurant security finally rushed in, grabbing and pulling the attackers back. A flurry of shouts, heavy footsteps, and clattering furniture filled the room. Within moments, the danger was contained, the men restrained and dragged toward the exit. David stood there, breathing hard, his hands trembling from the adrenaline. He turned slightly, just enough to check on Emily. She crawled out from under the table and ran straight into his arms, tears streaming down her cheeks. She pressed her face into his chest, whispering through shaky breaths, "Daddy, you're my hero." Those words melted the fear inside him, grounding him in a way nothing else could. The CEO, shaken but unharmed, stood a few feet away. His expensive suit was slightly rumpled, his expression still stunned. He looked at David as though seeing him for the first time, not as just another man in the room, but as the reason he was alive. Slowly, the CEO stepped forward, his voice unsteady with emotion. "You didn't even know me, yet you risked everything." David shook his head, holding Emily close. "I just did what anyone would do." But deep down, he knew not everyone would have stepped in. It was love for his daughter, the instinct to protect, that had given him the strength. Around them, the restaurant was silent. Strangers stared at David with awe, realizing they had just witnessed an act of pure courage and selflessness. Later that night, after the chaos had cleared and the restaurant returned to an uneasy calm, the CEO approached David's table. Emily sat beside her father, still holding his hand tightly, as if afraid to let go. The CEO placed a hand on David's shoulder, his voice low but filled with sincerity. "I owe you my life. Men like you, they're rare. Please, let me do something for you." David shook his head, a tired but gentle smile on his face. "I don't need anything. I just wanted my daughter to be safe, and no one deserves to be hurt like that." His words carried no pride, only honesty. But the CEO couldn't ignore the truth he had seen in those moments. A man with nothing to gain had risked everything, simply because it was right. In the days that followed, the CEO made sure David's bravery did not go unnoticed. He offered him a position at his company, one that promised stability, better pay, and a chance to give Emily the life she deserved. For David, it wasn't about money or recognition, it was about finally being able to provide for his daughter without sacrificing every ounce of himself. Emily beamed with pride, telling anyone who would listen, "My daddy is a hero." And in her innocent words lay the heart of it all. True strength wasn't measured by power or wealth, but by love, courage, and the willingness to stand up when it mattered most. Sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones no one sees coming.